Everybody, welcome back. This is the third episode in my YouTube series about how to get better at photography for beginners, or introduction to photography for beginners. My name is Stefan, and I'm the owner of Stefan Bauman Photography. If you are interested in checking out any of my work, you can go to my website, which is StefBPhoto, which will be listed somewhere on this frame after I edit it. So, in the meantime, now that that's all out of the way, today we're going to be talking about how your camera works, what the different parts of it, what different types of cameras there are. So to begin with, this guy right here, this is my workhorse. This is my Canon 6D Mark II. This is a digital SLR. So what that is essentially is, if I take this lens off right here, kind of loosen it up. Okay, so it means that I can, A, take the lenses apart, which is great because it gives me more options of what lenses I can use. But inside here, I don't know, let me look at this screen so I can get it in focus. Alright, so inside right in this hole is a mirror that hangs down on an angle. So when I hit the shutter button, or let me put it on bulb to give you a better idea. So when I hit the shutter button, that mirror that's in there is going to flip up. So it's, boom. So you'll see it's open as long as I have my finger on there. It gets a little darker. As I let go, that mirror pops back in place. So what that is essentially, I'm looking through a viewfinder whenever I use one of these cameras. So that's where I hold it up here, and I'm going to see exactly what's coming in through the lens. Now, in order to do that, because the eyepiece is up here, but the lens is down here, there's got to be a way for that light to travel up. So what happens is the light goes through the lens, bounces off that mirror, which is down on an angle, up into this chamber here, which is actually a prism. So it bounces off that mirror, up into here, onto another mirror, and another, and then back out through your eye. So I'm seeing through this hole right here exactly what's in the lens. Mirrorless cameras also work similarly. Let me go grab that little boy right over here. So this right here is a good example of a mirrorless camera. This is a Fujifilm X-T1. It's a great little camera. One of the clear advantages is size. You can see there is a marked difference in how big they are and also how heavy they are. So if I'm out and about, if I don't really need to have this one, I would much rather carry this one or another camera that's even smaller if possible, because let's face it, I have a bad neck. I don't want to be carrying 20 pounds a year around my neck, because by the end of the day I'm going to be walking like this and I'm going to have a headache and it's going to really suck. And I don't like it when it sucks. So mirrorless cameras. So instead of having that prism up top where the light is bouncing through on the other camera, this one is mirrorless because it doesn't have a mirror. If you take the lens off, you're actually going to see directly in here to the sensor itself. So there's nothing in the way of the sensor and the light that's coming through it, through the lens. Now, the question is, if that's the case, if there's nothing bouncing it up in to the eyepiece, how am I seeing it? Well, this is a digital viewfinder. So essentially, the camera circuitry reads what's coming through the lens, transmits it through a wire up here, and broadcasts that picture through the viewfinder. I don't know if you can really see it like this, but yeah, not really. So you can actually see through here as I'm holding it in front of it. It actually is broadcasting the image right through the viewfinder. So that's the difference between a mirrorless and an SLR. Other camera options that people often use, which I love, these two little guys are my GoPro Hero Sessions. I can hold them in front of my eyes, I can put one on my head. These ones, you can drop them in the water, you could swallow them if you want to, but you might have to have them surgically removed, so I don't recommend it. These are great. You don't have to have them in a special housing or anything, and you can strap them to your car, to your camera, you can strap them to just about anything. Now, the one of them is a newer one. This one actually shoots 4K, which is great. 4K is a higher quality of video. Most cameras these days that are coming out, and some phones are even shooting at that high quality. It's like a huge file, but it allows you to do things like slow motion. Gives you a lot more resolution if you're trying to make higher quality videos, which is also good. So that's your GoPros. Then everybody has their cell phones, and I'm telling you, some of the phones that are coming out now are just, they're damn good. They really are. Samsung phones especially, I think. I'm an iPhone user. I'm really tempted to switch over to Samsung just because of the camera on those babies. They're really good. So those are some different camera types. Now, the other things that you got to keep in mind is every camera is going to have a slightly different interface where they have the dials, the buttons. I use Canon. I love Sony. I also use Fuji. And I'll tell you, for example, this Fuji camera, it's taken some getting used to because it's more like the old manual cameras, and it actually has all the little dials and buttons and gizmos, which is part of the reason I was like, wow, I really want it. And now that I'm using it, sometimes it's a bit of a drawback if I'm trying to get a picture of something that's happening really quick and I don't want to miss it. And then I'm like, let me get the right button. Damn it, it's gone. I missed it. So, you know, those are some things you want to keep in mind. Canon and Nikon, both very streamlined. You can affect the aperture back here, shutter speed on a wheel up here. I think on Nikon they have a wheel here and a wheel here as opposed to the circle. Those allow you to do that. Now, another thing that this camera does, which I really love, is I can shoot video on it just like I'm shooting video on a Sony camera right now, but it actually has an articulating screen. A lot of cameras, like this mirrorless, for example, let me just pick this one back up. You have a mirror that kind of, a lens, I can't even talk tonight, it's late. You're going to have a screen that kind of comes up, which is great, you know, if you're doing a crowd shot and you want to tilt it up and look at that screen here, or if you want to put it on the floor and look down, or, you know, hold it in front of your chest like this. It allows you to kind of be able to take pictures or video without having to have your face plastered to the back of the camera. Now, I don't know why every camera doesn't offer this option to either flip up completely, which allows you to do things like blogging. The camera I'm filming you on right now is a Sony a6300. I love that camera. Unfortunately, the screen doesn't flip out to the side or completely up, so I am actually using my phone down here as a guide. So I hope I'm not staring at the phone too much as opposed to at the camera, which is where I should be staring. But my Canon, one of the things that I love about this guy is it has a mirror that screen that pops out to the side, and you can actually flip it around. So I can actually take a video of myself. Let me put this on screen. Boom, boom. Okay. And then I can actually flip this around. Oops, wrong way. And I can see the screen right here. So it's also great, you know, again, if I want to take video, or if I have this on a special mount so that I can walk around to do video with, I can actually just adjust this screen so I can look at it. It's great. And this is also a touch screen too, so you can focus and do a lot of things. Not every camera has that. Again, that's all going to increase the price of your unit. I do it professionally, so it's worth it to me. You can get away with getting a Canon or a Nikon camera, like I think the Canon Rebel line, and I'm not sure what the equivalent Nikon is, but you can get a really good one for probably between $300 and $500, or you can get a mirrorless one, or some of the point and shoots today are amazing. Like Canon has an what is it, the G7X, I think. I mean, it's a little pricey. It's about $700. That camera can do almost as much as this bad boy can, with the exception of being able to have as much control over lenses and stuff. But for blogging, it's great. Some of the lower models are great. There's actually a new Sony camera that comes out. I can't get over the price of it. It's literally like this big. So it's a tiny little thing. You can put it in the breast pocket of your shirt, pop it out, and it allows you to shoot 4K video. It has a screen that flips completely up. It has a good microphone on it. It takes amazing photos, and it's about the size of a box of Altoids. I don't want it because it doesn't have, well, I don't want it because I don't have $1,000 laying around to buy another camera. So that is another issue altogether. But it doesn't have a microphone jack to go on the side, which isn't necessarily a deal breaker, but if you're doing a lot of video, it makes it easier to do editing if you have a microphone jack. So the other thing is, so this is one lens. Another lens I have for this guy is a long lens. So now imagine having this thing stuck around. This lens right here weighs about 3 times as much as the body. So I end up carrying it with one hand like that or letting it hang from a strap. But by the end of the day, I just want to burn the damn thing because it's so heavy. But it allows me to take some really amazing photos. You know, it doesn't zoom in as far as you would think for something this big, but there's actually multiple lenses that are throughout the barrel that give it that quality. So this is a shorter episode today just because it's going over different types of cameras. Honestly, if you have a cell phone, start with that. I mean, those principles are the same. So one thing I want to go over real quick before I end the video is I want to give you a quick introduction to composition. So when you compose a photo, you're going to have there's some rules that they have set. And just like any rule, you can break them, but you want to know them first before you break them. So, in fact, I realized just now as I'm looking at the screen down here, I'm kind of breaking it. I should be standing off to the side a little bit, or a little bit this way, technically to make it a little bit more interesting. I've been standing here just because that's where I've been standing. I don't know what else to tell you. But to give you an idea of what I mean by that when I say it, is this is just quickly I scribbled together. It's an example of rule of thirds. So if this is your picture, if you cut it into 3 sections vertically and 3 sections horizontally, you're going to get intersection points at 4 places. So those 4 places are called points of interest. And what that means is that if you have a frame of a photo or a painting, if you can place the main subject, whether it be someone's face or a building or a car or a flower, at one of these points, your eye is going to naturally find it more interesting and pleasing to look at. The other thing is, if you're doing like a landscape or a cityscape photo, you're generally going to want the horizon line to be either here or here. You don't want the horizon of a photo to be smack dab in the middle, just like generally you don't want the key subject to be smack dab in the middle of this frame. You want it to be offset a little bit because it gives, and then you want to use the other elements of the scene around you, whether it be a tree branch that's leading in or you know, a car that's kind of covering part of the frame to frame the subject. You want to use other elements in the frame, whether it be light, color, or actual objects, to lead your eye to that point of interest. So that's called the rule of thirds. So I would actually, you know, what I would suggest is if tonight or tomorrow, if you can take a couple of pictures using that concept. So take some pictures of yourself or your friends using the rule of thirds. Try it at different points, and then take a picture of that same person or yourself smack dab in the middle of the frame, and then see if it is more pleasing for you one way or the other, and see if you can describe why, other than the fact that it's a rule, because that's not really a real good reason. So up on the wall behind me, I actually have another diagram of rule of thirds, but it actually has this like spiral shape on it. Now, I'm not a mathematician. I cannot give you huge explanations as to why this is, but I can tell you basically there's a guy named Fibonacci in the 12th century. Crazily wild, amazing mathematician, and he discovered that in nature there's this pattern that occurs over and over and over. And what that is like if you look at a seashell, like a nautilus, or there's a type of broccoli or cauliflower called Romanesca, which if you look at the design of it, you're actually going to see this design repeated over and over and over throughout the actual vegetable that grows. It's also present in the shape of a galaxy, the way it spirals, hurricanes, the way sunflower seeds are arrayed in the middle of the flower. They all actually match this principle, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Now, because it's something that occurs naturally, our eyes we're kind of like programmed through time to find certain things more appealing, and that's one of them because we're familiar with it. So we find it interesting. So that's how the rule of thirds kind of came about. You have those intersection points. Don't ask me what the numbers mean. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. I literally just copied a picture on Google and drew it on a board for this. But basically the way it works is, in addition to having the points of interest, if you can use other elements in the frame to come in and lead the eye to where you want it to be. So let's say this is where the subject is. This is where the person's face is, or the flower. If you can use, like, you know, the arch of a building or flowers or trees or whatever it may be, or even a person pointing at it in the frame as a way to draw your eye to that point, your eye is going to be much happier when it has a way to move around the frame and kind of bounce around and have a good way to follow it to where you want it to go. And so it's a good idea to think about your composition and why you want a person to look at a photo. To be honest, when I first started photography, I was in Brooklyn as a culinary student, and I was saving money by eating curried egg burritos, which, come to think of it, I probably could have found something that tasted better, but that's what I was eating. Curried egg burritos that I was cooking in my kitchen so that I could buy film on the weekends, and I would drop it off at this Russian film developer place that was right down the street from my house. And finally the guy, I don't know if it was Dimitri or what his name was, but he's like, what are you doing? Why are you taking these photos? Like, you take a picture? Why? And I looked at him like, what do you mean? Why wouldn't I take a picture? He's like, well, you gotta explain, you gotta show a story, you gotta make something interesting, you gotta make a person want to know why they're looking at this picture, and you gotta use the elements in the scene to draw that person's eye to what you want to see. And, you know, week after week going to this Russian guy who's blunt as hell and be like, yo, this picture sucks, or this picture's amazing, I really started to get passionate about and love photography, and went back to school, got a job on campus as a photographer for the school, and by the time I graduated culinary school, I ran for the hills in terms of being a chef and became a photographer instead. Go figure. Funny how life works. But, you know, keep that in mind. So if you can take a couple of shots and try to use these principles, that would be amazing if you could post them in the comments below, and we can discuss them on the next episode once I read through your comments. So again, please like, subscribe, share with your friends. If you have any questions, leave them below. If you have any comments that could help to improve the show, which I keep calling a podcast because I'm new at this, and in terms of YouTubing, and I listen to podcasts all the time, so forgive me. But once again, my name is Stefan. I own Stefan Bauman Photography, and you can look me up on Facebook, Instagram. You can go to my website, stefbphoto.com. Facebook is at StephBPhoto. Same thing with Instagram, at StephBPhotogram. And on YouTube, it's just StephBPhoto, but you know that because you're watching the video. So I really appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you guys soon. Have a great night.